September is here. Tomorrow is full moon. It's my first evening out moon gazing, and I can already feel the freezing nocturnal breath of the Wolf Lord crawling into my eyes, filled with the black flame of unholy hate. Note that this should only be done near the Morgadev sanatorium, otherwise you're not true. Let's continue about the sun being the giver, life giver of this illusion. That sounds funny, but I just want to go into more detail about it. Supposedly, the sun is cold and dark, which are just words, and I'll explain what I mean by that in a second, but the point is that it's different than how we perceive it from this standpoint when we look at it from this world. Firstly, about warm and cold, that's obviously an illusion. For the same kind of temperature, there's more symbols and more language, as we have Celsius and Fahrenheit in different places, so that alone should tell you something. On a different planet, 0 Celsius could be super warm for other beings, or it could be super cold, or minus 500 could be super warm or super cold, or plus 500 could be warm and cold. It's absolutely all based on the being that feels it with their skin, with their senses. It's an absolute illusion, just like sizes, as I explained in my last video. So the sun is essentially giving off energy through the atmosphere, which is more or less the aura of this world, and what we call the ozone layer. So it is the thing that you could say keeps this illusion alive. That's what I said, but I'm trying to put it in different words because it's quite simple to understand this actually. If the sun is different than what we actually perceive it as being for us very cold on the inside and actually dark, it means that if we go outside we would perceive it completely different. So only because of this aura and our auras, it gives us as what we perceive. So in the end, you could say that the sun created us, or that it gives us the life, because it's not that the sun is generally like that as we perceive it, it's that it specially gives this kind of sense of energy to us. So when you step out, it's something else. So that alone would prove it. Especially not only for us, but it's definitely what is giving the life to us, because it works in a special way. That should make it clear. And nowadays, with all the chemtrails and the ozone layer supposedly being destroyed and much more, there could be more reasons why it's done. Maybe to completely destroy this game and make it impossible for reincarnation to happen. That's what happens. So that would be the end of that. And of course another thing is that people get the filtered kind of sun nowadays. When you sungaze also, or when you sunbath, you get the filtered sun through all the chemicals. And what exactly happens then, hardly anybody can say for sure. It's definitely being blocked, and possibly a lot of beneficial things for the body are being filtered out through all the metals and what's in there. So I'm sure that the enlightened ones themselves have special spots in the world where they sungaze too, and possibly also destroy the ozone layer so they can get even more sun, because there's a lot of talks that the sun is getting stronger and stronger and stronger, whereas where I live it's getting less strong because many times it's filtered. And if you will begin sun gazing, likely you will realize that usually when you look where the sunset is, on the other side there won't be any chemtrails or nothing. When the sun rises, there will be the chemtrails there, and on the other side nothing. The chemtrails target the sunset and the sunrise very much most of the time. Blocking out the sun at noon is very hard, but when it's not as strong and with the beautiful light, it's quite easy to block it out. When I was at the train station, somebody had sunglasses on and the sun was shining, wasn't even that strong because there are some chem layers over it, but he was using his hands still like this, like I also used to do sometimes. Many people do it because they can't really see because the sun is so blinding, but with sunglasses, so I've never seen that before. But I could imagine that when you wear sunglasses for so long and you're in the dark for so long, that the sun blinds you a lot. Of course I cannot be sure if you didn't have some kind of condition. I started sungazing because of the physical benefits that I heard. Because purely spiritually, there's nothing that I want to gain or that I believe that I would gain from it. And one thing that I've noticed since I started sungazing, besides all these realizations that I've come to, which I came to anyway before sungazing, but still different now, it's also that my perspective on things, and purely physically my vision hasn't changed, but the way I view things and the way I see it, I can many times see through the illusion in some way. It has somehow made an impact on the way I perceive things through my eyes, and maybe even more. So another guy, sometime 1800s, supposedly looked at the sun for very long, and then had some spots in his eyes and almost went blind, as it was written. Seems like there's some more interpretations on it because I read more things about what happened, but in the end he was able to see angels. Or something similar happened. I'll put the link in the description about it. I also read that there were 10 or so Korean men in the North Korean camp, I believe, and this happened 70 years ago or so, doesn't really matter anyway, and they were forced to look at the sun all day long, from sunset to from sunrise to sunset. That so at noon too, all day long, and none of them had any actual damage, and many even reported that they didn't need glasses afterwards, and one of them is now quite old and still has proper sharp vision and doesn't need glasses. So besides getting the floaters and such, from my experience and me now sungazing at noon too for a month, I'm quite sure that it's not possible to damage your eyes, because you cannot go blind from light, quite obviously, logically. The energy you get from it does, as most have also reported, make your vision sharper actually. Minor things can happen, such as creating those lights in your eyes, and of course starting at noon right away could possibly create a spot in your eyes, kind of a sunspot light that could last for days, weeks, or even months. But I don't see any of this as actual damage to the eyeball, what's inside. So I'm not even able to remember how it was when the sun blinded me and I could hardly look. Same as it is now, that it just seems normal to me the way it is now, what I meant to say. And back then that seemed normal to me, so it's something one doesn't really think about, I believe. It just is the way it is. I remember after a few months, not that it's been that long, I was looking at this path I usually go to, the sungazing spot. I went there all summer, and it looked completely different because the sun gaze in the morning and my eyes were really used to it, and then I went later again for the sunset. I went 3 hours before or so, and the path looked different because the light usually blinded me, as it is with most people, I believe, and made everything much brighter and whiter. So then the sun was shining right in front, but the path looked simply different because the sun wasn't blinding me anymore, so I saw it in a different light. That's saying that was quite something to actually experience that. So after 1 year is after I've done it for a year, I'll be able to say more what it has actually done to me physically. Because if you want to come to realizations and such, and let's just say progress spiritually, if that makes any sense to you, then of course you don't need to sun gaze. Definitely not. Many say that there's an inner sun anyway, and I'm not sure if I would put it that way, but that's quite true. I can definitely approve that sun gazing is not needed to Somebody wrote that the morning sun or the sunset, actually said the morning only, is for the spirit. I said sunset because the colors are more or less the same. And that the noon sun is for the body. But that could mean many things, because I read about light therapy, and the light that is in the sunset and sunrise is just different. The orange, yellow, red light affects different parts of the body. So it could also just mean that whether the sun actually does anything to you spiritually, to me that's still a big question. It's still open. I'm going to read this now. When you can gaze on the brightness on the noonday sun with unflinching eyes, you can then look upon the blinding light of your Father, Heavenly Father, which is 1,000 times brighter than the brightest of the than the brightness of 1,000 suns, which is supposedly from the Bible, and also the one that is quite popular. Light is sweet and it is pleasant for the eyes to behold the sun. And then I read somebody wrote something about Sungazing in the sun. He wrote, "We know." The funny thing is that he uses "know," which clearly proves that he's conditioned, brainwashed, because he hasn't tried it himself, and there's nothing to do with knowledge. We know that it is not pleasant for the eyes to behold the the direct light of the sun. It is, however, pleasant for humanity to behold the sun as it rises in the morning, bringing light and life. Indeed, the sun itself is the face of the divine, in quotes, upon which it is impossible to look. Clearly, it is possible to look at it. For me, it many times changes. If I sungaze in the morning, then at noon it's much easier to sungaze. So I have periods where I can look at it just like I look at anything right now, even at noon, and then it goes to a point where I would rather, I forgot the word, do like this, more like not completely open eyes. Something with that, not gonna remember. So we'll see if I get to the point. But sunrise and sunset, the first 2 hours at least, is of course like looking at anything. 2-3 hours. It's very pleasant for the eyes. Boo! In August, I had decided to sungaze as much as possible. So whenever the sun was out, I was sungazing just to see what kind of difference it makes. So I didn't limit myself to only the sunrise and the sunset, the first hours of it. Some day I sungazed 7 to 8 hours, something around there, and others 4, 5, 6. And I didn't notice much of a difference. So sungazing many hours will possibly not make that much of a difference for many people, at least. Keeping it in the line between 2 to 4 hours a day is quite enough. Now I do about 1 to 3 hours at sunrise, then at noon I do about 30 to 60 minutes, and if I want more, then I would have to use the sun-gazing mask because of how my skin reacts to it. And at sunset the same as at sunrise. Of course, there's no such thing here as a clear day, so the sun is usually blocked in some way, usually not by natural clouds, so it's not possible to do it always, as I said, so I just try to manage it somehow. Maybe you're luckier where you are. So the thing is that there's pluses and minuses to having light and dark skin. Many kids who are supposed to by nature live more where it's sunny, let's just say in the south, or people from Africa, in the middle of Africa, it's not warm everywhere in Africa. There are reports that are vitamin D deficient and much more, simply because if you have darker skin, you will have to absorb the same kind of energy, you will have to spend a lot more time in the sun. So, seeing as there's not that much sun here nowadays anyway with the weather control, that's why it's not recommended for darker skinned people to live more in the north. And the other way around, if you're lighter skinned like me, living in Africa would be too much. Possibly, again, depends on where. Anybody could adapt to any place, but there's always some things you can do, and the skin does adapt, but not always. For me, my whole body except for my face adapts to it. My face hardly changes color at all, whereas my legs and my arms, chest and so on get quite darker and don't get sunburn. And the reason I'm talking about this is because of the eyes, because the eyes are also blue, green, brown and all kinds of in between there, but they're lighter and they're darker. And there's this thing which I read about when I read about sungazing a lot, that people with green eyes like me or blue eyes cannot absorb as much sunlight physically because of the color. And I believe that this is disinformation, because the plus with lighter skin is that you don't need to spend that much time in the sunlight to get the same benefits as darker skinned people. However, it's not as if it's thing that one doesn't want to do, to spend time in the sunlight. So that again just goes back to the same thing. Of course, people are born in special places, and the climate just fits for them. That's why it is the way it is. Nature has made it this way. So I believe it's the same with the eyes. Lighter skinned people or people with lighter eyes don't need to sungaze as much to get the same benefits. But then again, if they sungaze as much as darker skinned people, they can get problems. So it's just one thing or the other. Darker skinned people will spend more time in the sun and they will sungaze more, and it's just how it is. People didn't come from Africa, as many like you to believe, that there's an Adam and Eve or so in Africa and we all went lighter. There were many races, and yes, I'm not sure how you define the word race, but many people don't like to say that there's races for human beings, that we're all simply human, but we are obviously very different, not only physically, also on the inside. And this is how nature made it. There were lots of Adam and Eves everywhere because there were always different kind of people from the beginning of the human race, of the humankind. So your eyes could work similar like your skin when in contact with the sun. Just like many light-skinned people get freckles, if that's what they're called, or moles also, and all kinds of stuff on their skin, you get similar things on your eyes, that being those little lights or floaters and such. So that's why you should, of course, understand yourself. How much do you actually want to sungaze and be out in the sun? And another thing is that supposedly through your eyes you absorb 95 or some say 98 percent of the sun's energy, whatever benefits you get from it, and through the skin only 2% then. So if you've ever felt any differences through sunbathing, then just imagine how it would be if you would be sungazing, if that's true.